Namo Ramana, prostrations to Ramana who shines of the self in all beings. By his abundant grace, we commence this satsang with a prayer by Sapna Ganesh.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Namo Ramana. We now have the Muktakatrayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्ततभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. नमो रमणा.
Namo Ramana. We now have the chanting of Upadesha Saram, verses 21 to 30 by Ashwini Balaji and Uma Sripati.
इदमहं पदाधिक्यमन्वहम् अहमिलीनके प्रलयतत्तया विग्रहेन्द्रिया प्राणदीतमा नाहमेकसत्तज्जडं यसत् सत्त्वभासिका चित्त्वमेतरा सत्तया चित्तया यहम् ईशजीवयोर्वेषधीभिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेषः न स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपता आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्भयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित् सुखम् बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखम् विन्दति जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकम् निजविभानकम् महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्.
Namo Ramana. We now have the Ramananjali music sharings. We begin with Srimati V. Radha, and this will be followed by Pratibha.
I start with the chanting of Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. रमण गुरुव चरण पिडिव भकुत जनरे धन्यरो 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 रमण करुणगार उपमे सल्लदಯ್ಯ ಕೇಳಿರೋ ರಮಣ ಕರುಣಗಾರ ಉಪಮೆ ಸಲ್ಲದಯ್ಯ ಕೇಳಿರೋ ಅವಗೆ ಅವನೇ ಸಾಟಿಯಯ್ಯ ಇದುವೆ ಸತ್ಯ ತಿಳಿರೋ ಅವಗೆ ಅವನೇ ಸಾಟಿಯಯ್ಯ ಇದುವೆ ಸತ್ಯ ತಿಳಿರೋ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಚರಣ ಪಿಡಿವ ಭಕುತ ಜನರೇ ಧನ್ಯರೋ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಚರಣ ಪಿಡಿವ ಭಕುತ ಜನರೇ ಧನ್ಯರೋ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಕೃಪೆಯ ಮಾತ್ರ ಎನಿತು ಚಿತ್ರವಯ್ಯ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಕೃಪೆಯ ಮಾತ್ರ ಎನಿತು ಚಿತ್ರವಯ್ಯ ಹುಡುಕಿ ಹಿಡಿದು ಭಕ್ತರನ್ನು ತನ್ನೆಡೆಗೆ ಸೆಳೆಯುವ ಹುಡುಕಿ ಹಿಡಿದು ಭಕ್ತರನ್ನು ತನ್ನೆಡೆಗೆ ಸೆಳೆಯುವ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಕೃಪೆಯ ಮಾತ್ರ ಎನಿತು ಚಿತ್ರವಯ್ಯ ಹುಡುಕಿ ಹಿಡಿದು ಭಕ್ತರನ್ನು ತನ್ನೆಡೆಗೆ ಸೆಳೆಯುವ ರಮಣ ಗುರುವ ಚರಣ ಪಿಡಿವ ಭಕುತ ಜನರೇ ಧನ್ಯರೋ 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 ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ರಮಣ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ರಮಣ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. This song, composed by Sri Sadhu Om, is a treasure trove of Bhagwan's teachings. Each word is so heavily loaded with meaning that contemplating. We all know the very simple example of the iron filings and the magnet, right? In one sense, it looks like the iron filings are moving towards the magnet. But really speaking, it is the magnet alone that is pulling the iron filings towards itself. Even Bhagwan has mentioned this in Aksharamanamale. Kantam irumbu pol kavandanai vidamal kalandanudurpai arunachala. Suji gallu kabbinavanu selevante seleni nannanu arunachala. As a lodestone attracts iron, magnetizing it and holding it fast, so do you hold me, Arunachala. Here, Sri Sadhu Om Swami describes the immense power of Spurana or the self that is attracting every jiva towards itself. He says, looking at that immovable Arunachala, the form and formless within, I am having this overflowing desire to abide and remain still. That force in me, called Ramana, shining as Satchit, has captured my mind and given absolute peace, and hence there is no intentions of seeking anything outside. He is the ever-present, radiating light governing all of us. Some time back, I had shared with you that Bhagwan had caught me through chanting of Upadeshasaram, but it was Ramananjali music that bowled me over totally the first time I heard the whole Ramananjali troupe giving the performance at Ram Navami celebration decades ago. What a blessing that Sulochana Mami has compiled all these songs and given all these beautiful songs to us, made it available for us to enjoy, meditate, and contemplate on Bhagwan, Ramana, and his teachings. Every time I think of this song, the voice of Sulochana Mami rings in my mind. With prostrations to Mami, making an humble attempt to sing this powerful song, Amma Arunachalattai Parai.
Pratibhaka, you're on mute suddenly. You should unmute yourself.
Thanks, Pa. Amma, Amma Arunachalattai Parai சும்மாயிருக்குதே அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே அம்மா அம்மா அருணாச்சலத்தை பாராய் சும்மாயிருக்குதே அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே இம்மாத்திரத்தின் இருப்பே வலிந்தின் என்னை இழுக்குதே ஏதும் நினையாதென் போலிருவென்றென்னுள்ளொலிக்குதே அம்மா அம்மா அருணாச்சலத்தை பாராய் சும்மாயிருக்குதே அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே காண காண கருத்துலொடுங்கி கண்கள் நிலைக்குதே கண்கள் நிலைக்குதே கண்கள் நிலைக்குதே கல்லன்றுயிரை கவரும் காந்த கவர்ச்சி பலிக்குதே ஆணை பெண்ணை அனைவருள்ளமும் அபகரிக்குதே ஆசை அழிக்கும் ஆசை பெருக்கி அமைதி அளிக்குதே அமைதி அளிக்குதே அமைதி அளிக்குதே அம்மா அம்மா அருணாச்சலத்தை சலத்தை பாராய் சும்மாயிருக்குதே. அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே. உள்ளம் கவர்ந்த கள்வன் ரமணன் ஒளிந்தன் குள்ளானோ, ரமணன் ஒளிந்தன் குள்ளானோ, ரமணன் ஒளிந்தன் குள்ளானோ. உச்சி சிகர வடிவாய் ஒளிரும் ஒற்றை கண்ணனோ, மெல்லனகைக்கும் வேற்பொரு ரமணன் வெளியில் வாரானோ, ரமணன் வெளியில் வாரானோ, ரமணன் வெளியில் வாரானோ. விலகாதெந்தன் விழியை கவர்ந்து வேந்தன் ஆனானோ. அம்மா அம்மா அருணாச்சலத்தை பாராய் சும்மாயிருக்குதே. அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே. அம்மா அருணாச்சலத்தை பாராய் சும்மாயிருக்குதே. அது போல மந்துளசையாதிருக்கு ஆசை பெருக்குதே. நமோ ரமணா.
Namo Ramana. Today, after Pratibha, we have Aparna, Hansa, and Nitya. I would like to say a few words about this presentation because when I was discussing with Aparna about what they would sing, she had suggested Amma Arunachalathai Parai. And I said, I don't think anyone else is planning to sing it. But Pratibha has sung Amma Arunachalathai Parai, and Bhagavan has planned another song for Aparna. While introducing Aparna, my mind recalls Sri Ranganathan, whom we used to call Ranganathan Atimbe, one of the earliest and staunchest fans of Ramananjali music. I still recall the song which Aparna is going to present was sung by all of us, Amma, that is Srimati Sulochana Natarajan, myself, and my sister Dr. Ambika Kameshwar in the home of Sarasa and Ranganathan in CIT Colony in Chennai. That was way back in 1980-81. Whenever we used to go to their home, they would very eagerly want us to sing a song of Ramananjali. This year, Ramananjali is celebrating its 40th year, or we are celebrating the 40th year of Ramananjali. And there seems to be, at this time, a new awakening of interest and connection to the songs of Ramananjali. In this context, I would also like to announce that the songs of Ramananjali are now being taught by Dr. Ambika Kameshwar through a group. And if any one of you would like to hear this and receive these teaching songs of Ramananjali, please do message in the chat. And if you leave your WhatsApp number, and we will message you to join that group. So Ramananjali, which is now 40 years old and includes nearly or more than 2,000 compositions by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi and on him, which have been translated into several Indian languages. We now have Aparna, Hansa, and Nitya presenting an item from Ramananjali Sangeetam, and that will be followed by a sharing by Revati Shankar.
Namo Ramana. Just a couple of words before we start singing. Ramananjali has really opened up the treasure trove of Sannidhi Murai and the various compositions by the various devotees of Bhagavan Ramana. from simple folk tunes to very advanced Carnatic compositions. Sulochana Natarajan Mami has composed in very rare Carnatic ragas, including Raga Malikas and Chandas chanting, and in various forms of even simple Parayana, which is well received by devotees across age groups and across cultural backgrounds, from English songs to Kannada, Marathi, and various Indian languages. So it has been a pleasure to learn and now teach my children, and it's always a joy to sing Ramana songs as given by Ramananjali to us. Today we present a song from Ramana Sannidhi Murai. எந்தை ரமணன் அருள் எய்தினோரைக்காலும் சிந்தை கலங்கி தெருமரார். எந்தை ரமணன் அருள் எய்தினோரைக்காலும் சிந்தை கலங்கி தெருமரார். சிந்தை கலக்கம் யௌவார் கலக்கும். சிந்தை கலக்கம் யௌவார் கலக்கும். கலங்கா நிலை களமானின்றோளே மெய் நெஞ்சு கலக்கம் யௌவார் கலக்கும். கலங்கா நிலை களமானின்றோளே மெய் நெஞ்சு அடியாக்கு நல்ல அமுத ஸ்வரூபன் கொடியாக்கு நஞ்சில் கொடியோ நடியாக்கு நல்ல அமுத ஸ்வரூபன் கொடியாக்கு நஞ்சில் கொடியோ முடியாக்கும் கங்கையார் வானோர் கடவுளார். முடியாக்கும் கங்கையார் வானோர் கடவுளார். ஸ்ரீரமணன் தங்கையார் அன்பர் தமக்கு முடியாக்கும் கங்கையார் வானோர் கடவுளார். ஸ்ரீரமணன் தங்கையார் அன்பர் தமக்கு எந்தை ராமணன் அருள் எய்தினோரைக்காலும் சிந்தை கலங்கி தெருமரார். எந்தை ராமணன் அருள் எய்தினோரைக்காலும் சிந்தை கலங்கி தெருமரார். நமோ தேசியம்.
मृत्युञ्जयं मृत्युभियाश्रितानाम् अहं मतिर्मृत्युमुपैति पूर्वम् अथ स्वभावादमृतेषु तेषु कथं पुनर्मृत्युधियोऽवकाशः. Those who, in dread of death, verily seek refuge in the fortress of the holy feet of Lord Almighty, who has neither birth nor death, their I-ness and mineness dies deathless. Will there ever again be apprehended by the notion of death? மரணவாதனை மாற்ற ரமணனென்று அருணை தன்னில் அமுதம் வந்துற்ற is a song by Muruganaraja Swami in the Ramana Sannidhi Murai. The Satguru is so compassionate that just his presence in our life makes us full of life, deathless. I see that every moment when I go out of the self to the lifeless thought, it is like death. Every moment we think about so many thoughts, every moment we become lifeless, going away from the self. Bhagavan has come to our world and stands on the Aruna hill just to protect us from the jaws of the death. When we seek refuge in the Almighty, even the fate of an individual will change. When you chant the name of the Lord in the heart, the name of the Enlightened One, then we realize that the whole world rises from Him, and from that light we see the whole world. I present you a song, the translation of Maranavardhane in Kannada by N.S. Lakshminarayana Bhatta, music by M. Rangarao. ಸಾವಿನ ನೋವಿಂದೆಮ್ಮನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿಂತಿದೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನಂದವು ರಮಣನ ರೂಪಿನಲಿ ಶಾಶ್ವತವೆನಿಸುವ ಬಾಳನು ಪಡೆಯಲು ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ ಸಾವಿನ ನೋವಿಂದೆಮ್ಮನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನಂದವು ರಮಣನ ರೂಪಿನಲಿ ಶಾಶ್ವತವೆನಿಸುವ ಬಾಳನು ಪಡೆಯಲು ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ ಹಣೆಯಲಿ ಬರೆದ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಲಿಖಿತವನೆ ಅಳಿಸಲು ಬಯಸಲು ಜಾಣರಿಗೂ ಸರ್ವಶಕ್ತ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣನ ಪಾದವ ಅಪ್ಪುವುದೊಂದೇ ಗತಿ ಕಡೆಗೂ ಸಾವಿನ ನೋವಿಂದೆಮ್ಮನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿಂತಿಹೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನಂದವು ರಮಣನ ರೂಪಿನಲಿ ಶಾಶ್ವತವೆನಿಸುವ ಬಾಳನು ಪಡೆಯಲು ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ ಭಜಿಸಲು ಒಂದೇ ಮನದಿ ರಮಣನನು ಶಿವನನ್ನು ಜ್ಞಾನದ ಜ್ವಾಲೆಯನು ಕಾಣುವುದಾಹ ಇಡಿಯ ವಿಶ್ವವೇ ಅವನ ಬೆಳಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಏಳುವುದನು ಕಾಣುವುದಾಹ ಇಡಿಯ ವಿಶ್ವವೇ ಅವನ ಬೆಳಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಏಳುವುದನು ಅವನ ಬೆಳಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಏಳುವುದನು ಸಾವಿನ ನೋವಿಂದೆಮ್ಮನು ಕಾಯಲು ನಿಂತಿದೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಆನಂದವು ರಮಣನ ರೂಪಿನಲಿ ಶಾಶ್ವತವೆನಿಸುವ ಬಾಳನು ಪಡೆಯಲು ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ ಶರಣು ಬನ್ನಿ ಆ ದೇವನಲಿ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We now have the reading by Sri N. Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. We continue our reading from the book First Meetings with Ramana Maharshi, First Person Accounts, edited and compiled by our founder president Sri A.R. Natarajan. We are reading this particular segment entitled as God Radiating Terrifically by Frank H. Humphreys. Yesterday, I got a day's leave and went on with the Munshi to meet Shastriyar. Shastriyar must be Ganapati Maninkal, the master of whom I have been writing. Shastriyar and the Munshi are both Chelas, disciples of the Maharishi. We heard Shastriyar lecture for an hour and a half in Tamil to a huge crowd, and he appeared refreshed by his efforts. At 2 p.m., he pointed to the cave where the Maharishi lives, and we set off up the mountain to see him. When we reached the cave, we sat before him at his feet and said nothing. We sat thus a long while, and I felt lifted out of myself. When Shastriyar told me to look the Maharishi in the eyes, then Shastriyar told me to look the Maharishi in the eyes and not to turn my gaze. For half an hour, I looked him in the eyes, which never changed their expression of deep contemplation. I began to realize somewhat that the body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. I could only feel his body was not the man, it was the instrument of God, merely a sitting, motionless corpse from which God was radiating terrifically. My own sensations were indescribable. Shastriyar then said I might speak. I asked for enlightenment teaching, and he spoke and we listened. In a few sentences of broken English and in Telugu, he conveyed words of meaning and taught me direct, which he seldom does, and made me his chela. Not, of course, such a one as the Shastriyar, his own very special chela, but as one of the many that great masters have. The most touching sight was the number of tiny children up to about 7 years of age who climbed the mountain all on their own to come and sit near the Maharishi, even though he may not speak a word or hardly look at them for days together. They do not play, but just sit quietly there in perfect contentment. He is a man beyond description in his expression of dignity, gentleness, self control, and calm strength of conviction. My second visit to the Maharishi, I went by motor and motorcycle. I went by motor and climbed up to the cave. He smiled when he saw me, but was not the least surprised. Before he had sat down, he had asked me a question private to myself, of which he knew, showing that he recognized me. Everyone who comes to him is as a book, and a single glance suffices to reveal its contents. You have not yet had any food and are hungry, said the Maharishi. I admitted, and it was so. He immediately called to a chela to bring me food, rice, ghee, fruit, etc., eaten with the fingers as natives do not use spoons. Though I have practiced eating this way, I lack dexterity. So he gave me a coconut spoon to eat with, smiling and talking between whiles. You can imagine nothing more beautiful than his smile. I had coconut milk to drink, white like cow's milk and delicious, to which he had himself added sugar. When I had finished, I was still hungry, and he knew it and ordered more. He knew everything, and when others pressed me to eat fruit when I had enough, he stopped them at once. I had to apologize for my way of drinking. He only said, never mind. Natives are particular about this. They never sip nor touch the vessel with their lips, but pour the liquid straight in. Thus, many can drink from the same cup without fear of infection. While I was eating, he was relating my past history to others, and accurately too. Yet he had seen me but once before, and many hundreds he had seen in between. He simply turned on clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is the ability to see the past and the future beyond the normal. He simply turned on clairvoyance as we would refer to an encyclopedia. I sat for about 3 hours listening to his teaching. I had heard that on one occasion, when a chela asked him a question, he picked up a book, pointed to a passage in it, and said, "There is your answer." Later on, I was thirsty, for it had been a long, hot ride, but I would not have shown it for worlds. Yet he knew and told a chela to make me some lemonade. At last I had to go, so bowed as we do, and went outside the cave to put on my boots. He came outside too and said I might come to see him again. The Mahatma's teaching. A master is one who meditated solely on God, has flung his whole personality into the sea of God and drowned and forgotten his personality there till he becomes simply the instrument of God. And when his mouth opens, it speaks God's words without effort or forethought. And when he raises a hand, God flows again through that to work a miracle. Do not think too much of psychical phenomena and such things. Their number is legion. Legion, of course, means many. Their number is legion, utterly indefinite. And once a faith in psychical things is established in the heart of a seeker, such phenomena have done their work. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and such things are not worth having when such far greater illumination and peace are possible without them than with them. The masters take on these powers as a form of self sacrifice. I know the masters, two of the greatest, and I tell you that the idea that a master is simply one who has attained power over the various occult senses by long practice and prayer or anything else is utterly and absolutely false. No master ever cared a rap for the occult powers, for he has no need of them for his daily life. The phenomena we see are curious and surprising, but the most marvelous thing of it all we do not realize, and that is that one and only one illimitable force is responsible for all the phenomena we see and the act of our seeing them. Do not fix your attention on all these changing things of life, death, and phenomena. Do not think of even the actual act of seeing them or perceiving them, but only of that which sees all these things, that which is responsible for it all. This will seem nearly impossible at first, but by degrees the result will be felt. It takes years of steady, daily practice, but that is how a master is made. Give yourself a quarter of an hour a day. Keep your eyes open and try to keep the mind unshakenly fixed on that which sees. It is inside yourself. Do not expect to find that that is something definite on which the mind can be fixed easily. It will not be so. Though it takes years to find that, the results of this concentration will soon show themselves. In 4 or 5 months' time, in all sorts of unconscious clairvoyance, in peace of mind, in power to deal with troubles, in power all around, always unconscious power. I have given you this teaching in the same words as the masters give it to their intimate chelas. From now onwards, let your whole thought in meditation be not on the act of seeing, nor on what you see, but immovably on that which sees. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We now have the sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande.
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. We continue to do manana on Bhagavad Gita Saram, the 42 verses that Bhagwan had chosen, and subsequently he chose one of them, so which we are doing manana on, which was Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhutasya Sthita Aham Adishya Madhyam Cha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. So last satsang we had actually discussed, I'll do a small recap, that Gudakesha, Bhagavan says Gudakesha means he has conquered ignorance. So it's a very important thing when we do manana on this text, because persons in ignorance do not know how the Supreme manifests in the material and spiritual worlds. And Bhagavan also has given his beautiful Ek Shloki, which was Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Aham Ahamiti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati Hridaya Visham Manasa Swam Chinvata Majjatava Pavana Chalana Rodhat Atmanishtor Bhavatvam. So the important thing is there's a lot of similarity between the verse Bhagavan chose as well as the Ek Shloki. One is that Hridaya Kuhara Madhye, that the God, the infinite, is there in each of the finites. So that's very, very clear. And in his Ek Shloki, he says, I am that I, which is within each person. And you have to, how do you go and realize that is by diving deep within, or in controlling the breath and investigating, by which you will be able to get to your natural self. Now, in this shloka that we are really doing manana on is Aham Adishya Madhyamcha Bhutanam Anta Evacha. That means I am the beginning, I am the middle, and I am the end. This is what Krishna is saying, which Bhagavan chose. What does it really mean? See, we have to understand it. Shri Krishna is telling in this that he is addressing it to Gudakesha, that Arjuna has conquered ignorance. That's a very important point that we need to understand. But most of us are actually if you look at we are Bahirmukha, we are not Antarmukha. And because we are Bahirmukha, what we are experience on a daily basis is the waking, the deep sleep, as well as the dream state. Now, if you look at in the waking state, what happens is as you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you see is, first you say, I am, and then the whole world appears. So if you are not there, which is in the deep sleep, if you are not there, the world is not there. So in the dream state, what happens is you are lying on the bed and your mind is projecting out. So if you wanted to become a fighter pilot, you will be flying an F-16 plane, and everybody will be watching you fly and say, and when you actually come out of the dream, you said, oh, it was just a dream. And similarly, in the deep sleep state, what happened in the deep sleep is that it is actually a potential consciousness. Bhagavan says it's a potential consciousness, but when you actually wake up, you say, I had a great sleep. So you are there in the waking, you are there in the dream, and you are there in the deep sleep. Now, many of us do, but many of us actually do not inquire into this I am that was present in all these three waking states. Now, in this, Bhagavan is in the beginning, the middle, and the end. What does this mean? See, the beginning before we were born, Bhagwan existed. And when we were born, the infinite manifested as this finite. And the other thing that came to my mind is, at the end, what happens? When this body is being taken to the Shamshan Ghat, what do people say? They say, Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai. What does this mean? That means the only truth is God. It could be Ram, it could be Ramana, it could be Shiva, it could be anybody. But the important thing is that God is only true. So the I am, which is the tattva, which a lot of people call the Turiya state, which is the fourth state, goes across the waking, dream, and deep sleep. That I am state is what Bhagwan says we have to go in and inquire. Now, because we are outward turned, Bhagwan says we have to go inwards and understand. Now, it's important that we understand what are we really wanting in this life. Are we looking at the Nitya or are we looking at the Anitya? See, Nitya is something that is always there, and Anitya it is there sometimes, but it is not, sometimes it is not there. If you look at the waking state, if you look at the dream state, what happens? Sometimes it is there and sometimes it is not there. Like today, now in the Satsangh, I see so many faces. And then half an hour, 45 minutes later, many of these faces, the Satsangh would have got finished. I don't see those faces. So what happens is, this is all, so anything that is perceived by the senses, that's the eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and touch and feel. What happens is, it's not Nitya, it is not, it is Anitya and it's not Nitya. So Bhagwan says, if you cannot do, if you can't do self-inquiry, if you can't really go inside, then Bhagwan says in Upadesha Saram, Ashtamurti Vriddeva Pujanam. That means you can also pray to me as the 5 elements, earth, moon, sun, moon, as well as the self within you. So that is another way of slowly seeing God everywhere outside. As you see God everywhere outside, then you believe that God is there within you also. So when everything is God outside, then you will stop actually craving for things in the outside. When you stop craving for things in the outside, you start going inside. And as you keep going inside, the mind which is outward turned, which is Bahirmukha, starts becoming Antarmukha. When it becomes Antarmukha, the world outside starts quietening. As the world outside starts quietening, the world within starts glowing more and more. And what really happens is more and more you dive it within. And as Bhagwan says, you do surrender yourself or you do self-inquiry. What happens is the mind becomes quieter and quieter and quieter. As the mind becomes quieter, the world also becomes quieter. And then you start experiencing the Ulla Porul, whatever Nandkumar always says, you'll start experiencing that divinity within yourself. Once you start experiencing the divinity within yourself, then what happens is you will start experiencing whatever is within you is actually outside you. So whatever you perceive within is actually outside. So if there is divinity, if there's love, if there's compassion, if there's goodness, if there's sharing, if there's all the high values within you, then outside also you will start experiencing the same values and you start seeing the same things. So then what happens is, then you slowly start experiencing God within. So this is what Bhagwan is saying. Krishna is saying the beginning, middle, and end. You will start experiencing this Turiya state, this common thread which goes through our waking, dream, and deep sleep. As you go within more and more and more, and as like what Nandkumar was saying, you have to keep going year after year after year. My mind is, it's not easy to make your best friend. So you really have to keep trying and trying and trying. And one day, what will happen is you will be within, and the mind will stop going out, and then you will experience what Sri Krishna is saying, that Aham Adishya, I am in the beginning, I am in the middle, I am in the end. And then you will always be, you will come to the state of seeing God in everything and everywhere, and then life is just perfect, and there is nothing to worry about. There's nothing to achieve, because everything is only God, and you will be in perfect peace and total stability. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We have a session of self-inquiry conducted for us by Dilip Sinha.
Namo Ramana, thank you, Akka. ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणेश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाभ्यासितम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणेश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् The reason for Atma Vichara is more profound in this waking state because of the thoughts that continuously run and grasp and catch our attention. Thoughts may come because the indriyas may interact with the world, or I might myself think of something, or I may get into an analysis mode. Whichever may be the reason, as soon as the thought rises, and the moment we grasp it, we own it, we make it ours, we forget the seer. We get entangled with the seeing. The seeing takes over us. This is what in the spiritual books, the scriptures, they say that the snake is getting superimposed on the rope. The thought which gets superimposed on the self which is very readily available, as it was being read out by Nandakumarji and then by Venkateshji. That one single thread, that I am, that awareness, which always is there, which is aware of the thought or of the actions of the thought, which never doesn't get diminished to a slightest degree, is actually superimposed with the contents of the thought. And therefore, the contents of the thought makes us feel identified with that limitedness, whatever may be that. And most often, if we analyze, we find that we get limited to this body or to this identity, this name and form. And therefore, we feel, and these thoughts being continuous, we feel exhausted. Therefore, Bhagavan has given this Brahmastram, wherein he says, wherein he has made it very clear, if we uproot the tree of thought, then the self is self-evident. So all we need to do, the whole purpose of the sadhana, as Akka very beautifully said in yesterday's talk, is not to gain the self. The rope is already there. We just have to stop superimposing the snake on it. And for that, all we need to do is, if at all we are superimposing, we have to become diligently aware that we are superimposing. And therefore, Bhagavan has given us this Atma Vichara, wherein he says, moment you become aware of a thought, inquire, to whom is this? Then and there, we come to know that this is for me. He asks us to inquire, who is this I? What is this real source of this I? What do I refer to as I? Moment we inquire, try to go either following the thought, I thought, to its source, or what do I refer to as I? Then and there, the superimposition of the thought stops. One gets back to the very source one already is. And Bhagavan says, diligently and repeatedly, when one does this, he says, one will gain enough strength to remain at the source. This is the direct path. And he also says, only by constantly attending to that self which is free of all these superimpositions, by that strength alone, we can transcend all these limitations. We cannot cross a limitation holding on to another limitation. We can't cross a thought using another idea. So we have to constantly get back to that which is here and now free, which is our real nature. So Bhagavan has given us Atma Vichara as a means to get back to our real nature every time there is a thought. with the grace of the Master, for the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We now have a sharing by Dr. Kalarani Rangaswamy from Madurai, and that will be followed by a sharing by Ujjwal Jagadish.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சலா. Namo Ramana to all. We are dwelling on the Dhyana song by Sadhu Om, and we learn that while doing Dhyanam, one should not allow the mind to wander here and there, but should make it rest in the Swarupa, which can be possible only if one does not think anything else except God. Now the question arises, where can I find God? Who is He? Sadhu Om Swami in the next stanza says, எந்த வடிவில் கருதினும் அந்த வடிவில் தோன்றுவார். சொந்த வடிவம் பெயரிலார் சுத்தமோன சின்மயம். We can think of Him in any form as we like, and He will be seen as we thought of Him. ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान. The favorite song by Mahatma Gandhi. So when Bhagwan was, the case with Bhagwan was also the same. When Bhagwan was in Virupaksha cave, a devotee from Kerala, Amritanatha, asked Bhagwan, who are you? Are you that Hari, Shiva, Varusi or Yadivar? Who are you? And he's right, because when we see the compassion of Bhagwan towards other jivas, it makes us think of him in many forms, like Amritananda. For example, monkeys had a very good time in the ashram with Bhagwan. One lame monkey was very affectionate towards Bhagwan, and he used to sit on Bhagwan's lap. At one such time, when he was sitting on Bhagwan's lap, Bhagwan said, when you become a king of your clan, would you forget us? And when it came from Bhagwan's divine mouth, will it not happen? It happened, and the lamb monkey became the king. And he came to visit Bhagwan with his 3 wives and his retinue. Bhagwan asked people in the ashram to prepare a feast for him and his retinue. When we hear this, we can realize and we can think, maybe Rama has taken the avatar of Bhagwan Ramana. Amritananda says Bhagwan as Hari. The compassion that Bhagwan had shown towards cow Lakshmi is enormous. And that also makes us think that he is Krishna in Gokulam. Suddhananda Bharati also writes, when I see Bhagwan in Goshala, he says it reminds me of Sri Krishna himself in Gokulam. Many devotees have seen him as Kartikeya, Dakshinamurti, and in many other forms as they like. That's why Sadhu says, Yenda vadivil karudinum anda vadivil thondruvar. In Ulladu 40 verses also, Bhagwan says, Yeppeyaritte yevvuruvil ethinum per guru il apporulai kanvali adu. So, under whatever name and form we worship, it leads us on to the knowledge of the nameless, formless, absolute. Yet, to see one's true self in the absolute, subside into it, and be one with it. This is the true knowledge of truth. That's why in the second stanza, Sadhu Om says, Sonda vadivam peyarilar suttamona chinmayam. Actually, he does not have any name or any form, but to make it easy for the sadhakas, Sadhu Om Swami says, you can think of him in any form. You can see him as your Ishtadeva or in anyone else, like or in any form, because actually he's seen everywhere. Actually, he's seen everywhere. Once, Abhaya was sitting in Kailasam and sitting with her legs stretched facing Shiva. Parvati got tensed and Shiva said, Uma, please leave it. Let her sit as she likes. But Parvati Devi did not listen to him, and she asked one of her attendants to ask her to fold, change Abhay's legs direction. When this was told to Abhay, Abhaya, she's a very great poet in Tamil Nadu actually, and a saint also. And Abhaya said, oh, I'm very sorry. I will move my feet in the direction where Shiva is not there. And she started moving and changing her legs in different directions. The result was Shiva has to run in all the directions as Abhay was moving her legs. At last, Shiva called Uma. I told you, Uma, not to disturb her, that party. See, now she is making me run here and there. The same thing happened in ashram also. Once a foreign lady devotee was sitting down like Abhay party, and attendant said, Madam, your feet is facing Bhagwan, and so please fold it. But she could not do it. With great difficulty, she was folding her leg. On seeing this, our Karunamurti Bhagwan could not bear this, and he called the attendants and said, why are you troubling them? No, Bhagwan, it will be a disrespect to Bhagwan when she is stretching her leg out. Oh, if that is the case, I will also fold my leg. Actually, Bhagwan had a great pain in his leg. Then that attendant felt very sorry for that. Then out of compassion again, Bhagwan stretched his leg. That's why everywhere he is there. In every creation he is there. We can see him in each and everything that we see, and we can realize him in each and every action. That's why in Ulladu Narpade, in another stanza, Bhagwan says, Anigalandam palavun poi meyyam ponnai andri undo puhal. Is there any ornament other than gold? Can we separate the gold from the ornament? So we need not wait for the doors of the temple to open at this situation to see God, because he is there not only in the temple, he is within us. Tirumular says, Ullam Perungoyil, Unudambu Alayam, Vallal Piranarku Vai Gobaravasal, Tella Telindarku Jeevan Sivalingam. The Jiva which is inside, the same thing as we see the Sivalingam outside. So when we make the sadhana to see him within us, we can realize there is nothing in this world and in any other world, if at all there is, other than self. That is why Sadhvam Swami in this stanza says, Yenda vadivil karudinum, Anda vadivil tondruvar, Sonda vadivam peyarirar, Sutta mona chinmayam. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Katayani Jaya Kalusham Harata Karuna Nidina Runa Shaila Jusha Katayu Nishchaya Kalmasha Hari Pudu Karuna Nidhi अरुणगिरि विहारिया कथयु निश्चय कल्मष हरिपुदु करुणानिधि अरुणगिरि विहारिया. Ganapati Muni, in the first stanza of this Ramana Chatvarimshat, says the life of Bhagavan Ramana, the life which itself is his teaching, when one meditates on his life, okay, it truly destroys all the kalmashas, all the impurities. And this is because Ramana is the very embodiment of Karuna, who is residing at Arunachala, who is reveling at Arunachala. One incident which Ganapati Muni himself for the first time points out is the day when Bhagavan Ramana was born. A blind midwife who was helping Alagammal in the delivery of this second child of Alagammal and Sundaramayyar, she saw a bright light. She was a blind midwife who could not see. But when this divine child was born, she could see an all-enveloping light, and she cried, "Oh, Alagu! Oh, Alagu! This is not a normal baby, human baby which is born. It is the supreme light which is born as your child. This is a supreme light." And this incident of the birth of Bhagavan Ramana can be interpreted in many ways. And one of the ways is that why did Ramana reveal himself as the light to this blind midwife? The blind midwife represents all of us who are blinded by our impurities, our age-old vasanas that we have been carrying for ages, and we are blinded and we are not able to see the light of the self. To us, Bhagavan has revealed himself as the light, and he appears in front of light and removing all the darkness and filling our life with light, pure light. When great sinners, not great sinners, great sadhus who thought they were sinners, one devotee came and told, "Oh Bhagavan Ramana, I am such a sinner." The great ones like Buddha and Jesus came down to earth to redeem sinners like us. Is there any hope for us? And Bhagavan, at the time when he was staying at Virupaksha cave, smiled at this devotee and told in English, "Yes, there is hope. Yes, there is hope. Even for the sinners," Bhagavan says, and has assured that there is hope. And we also hear a story when once at Ramanashramam, a visitor came to Bhagavan Ramana crying loudly and fell at the feet of Ramana and told, "Ramana, I'm a great sinner. I have done so many papas in my life and I am so impure, and I have come as you as my only refuge. Please save me from these sins." And Ramana told, "Why should I save you?" And the devotee told, the visitor told, "Swami, I have surrendered to you. You are my guru." And Ramana became straight and asked, "Oh, if that is so, what will you give me as Guru Dakshina?" And all the devotees were stunned. What is this? What does Bhagavan want? And what is he going to ask this visitor? And the visitor was surprised and told, "Swami, everything is for you. Whatever I have, I am ready to give it to you. Please save me from my sins." And Ramana told, "If that is the case, then give me all the punya that you have done, the merit of all that is good you have done. You give it to me without any expectation." And the person wondered, "I have not done any punya in my life, but unknowingly, if some good has happened to somebody, let all those good, the merit of that good punya, let be yours. Let it be yours," he said. And Bhagavan again, he became straight and he told, "This is not enough." And the visitor wondered, "What else do you want, Bhagavan? I have given you all the good merits that I had done." And then he told, "Now give me all the consequences, all the papa that you have done, all the sins, give it to me." And the visitor started trembling and telling Bhagavan, "Bhagavan, you don't know what you are asking for. I have done such horrible sins in my life. You can't bear it, Bhagavan, you can't bear it." And Bhagavan told, if you are ready to give me the sins, then please give it to me. Otherwise, don't ask for me. Take both your merits and your sins and leave from here. And with great difficulty, this visitor completely surrendered all his sins to Bhagavan, and he said, Oh Bhagavan, I have completely given you all my sins too, and all the consequences of these sins I have surrendered it to you. And at that moment, the visitor felt so light and happy, and this peace and calmness which the visitor felt was felt by all around. And Bhagavan told, now there is no good, there is no bad, there is nothing. You are pure. So be as you are, said Bhagavan Ramana. And it is reported that that visitor went back to his place filled with peace and filled with purity, all impurities gone. And that peace was so enveloping that all the people felt the same peace, and the visitor never came back again. That was the story of a person, a devotee who came and all his impurities were taken away, was destroyed. And this assurance that Bhagavan gives is not only for only human beings. We see that this assurance of removing all the impurities and making us pure, we see in the life of Lakshmi the cow, Jackie the dog, Valli the deer, and the blessed crow, and many others, because he is Karuna Nidhi. He is the treasure of Karuna, compassion. And great poets have sung this person holding the treasure of Karuna. He is spending on all of us like a spendthrift, and he's spending all the Karuna without even making calculations and making accounts. He's spending it like a spendthrift, and he revels in the Arunachala, which is our heart. He's ever reveling there and showering his Karuna to all of us, and he's giving us opportunities through these satsangs to meditate on his life and his teachings and make ourselves pure. Kataya nijaya kalusham harata karuna nidinaruna shailajusha kateyu nishchaya kalmashava haripudu karuna nidhi arunagiriya vihariya. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. So today, everyone is meditating on the Apara truth, which is Adi, Madhya, Anta, and beyond that, Aham Adischa, Madhyamcha, Bhutanam, Anta Evacha. That which we have been meditating on as the very first word of the Dhyana Shloka of Bhagavan's Ashtotra, composed by Vishwanatha Swami. Apara Satchit Sukhavari Rashi. Apara, which engulfs us, which is all pervading, and even to use these words would be to limit it. But out of its compassion, it allows us to approach it. How does it allow us to approach it? How can one approach that which is beyond the mind? Bhagavan has given us the first and beautiful clue in Ulladu Narpadu, where he says, Ullade Ullal Unar. To be that, to be the self, to be the Ulla Purul, is to know it, to meditate on it. And what is that? That is Sat. Apara Sat Chit Sukhavari Rashi. It is Sat. It is being. It is existence. Because what else apart from existence can be Apara? Anything which is manifest is limited. So only the being, only that which is, only the Sat can be Apara. Only the Sat can be limitless. Only the Sat can be experienced by all. It includes everything. When Bhagavan experienced the self, the Sat, as a boy of 16, he said, I understood that it is a current which is not limited to the body, but which includes the body. So today, what we meditated on last time, that the apara includes all names and forms. It includes everything. It cannot exclude anything. So we found Sadhu Swami's song, எந்த வடிவில் கருதினும் அந்த வடிவில் தோன்றுவான். சொந்த வடிவம் பெயரிலா சுத்தமான சின்மயம். Muruganatha Swami also says, தனக்கென்றோர் வண்ணமில்லான் வடிவம் இல்லான் சராச்சரங்கட்கௌ எல்லாம் தானே தந்தான். He has no form of his own, but it is he who has bestowed all the living beings, all the manifestation with form. So, what is it that is the common thread? What is the apara in everything? It is the Sat, it is the existence. And we also saw very beautifully Humphreys describing how that Sat, because it is apara, how it includes everyone in its love. That's why he says children, sometimes younger than 7 years of age, used to climb up the hill and simply be in Bhagavan's presence. What is that? That is the glory of the Sat. That is the beauty of the Sat. That is the joy of the Sat. Bhagavan, every moment Bhagavan's life reveals that extraordinary beauty, which is apara. That beauty of the Sat is so apara, it is so limitless, it is so extraordinary. We see it in every moment of Bhagavan's life. By just being there, he could quell all the minds, he could take all the minds to that very beauty. It is said that once on a Shivaratri evening, somebody asked Bhagavan, please explain to us the meaning of the Dakshinamurti Stotram of Alishankar. And Bhagavan consented. He nodded his head. And everyone was waiting for Bhagavan to speak. Bhagavan was in silence. Everyone was in silence. And the night passed. And in the morning, people were not even aware how the night had passed. But they asked Bhagavan, they said, Bhagavan, you said you will explain the meaning of the Dakshinamurti Stotra. Bhagavan said, what else happened? So the silence, the Sat is that Mauna. That is the beauty of the Sat, because existence does not need any expression. That Sat is apara. Once it gets into expression, it becomes limited. When it is mauna, it is apara. It has got no limits. So that is the silence of Bhagavan. Everybody says Bhagavan was ever silent. He never spoke at all. But we know that Bhagavan has composed so many verses for us. Bhagavan has answered so many questions. Sri Natarajan would say that if you put together all the questions and answers that have been recorded, many have not been recorded. Many years have not been recorded. In fact, the records are of later years. So only those questions and a few question answers of the earlier years, if you put them together, we will get maybe more than 30,000 answers by Bhagavan, I would say. So much Bhagavan has spoken, and yet everyone said Bhagavan was silent because Bhagavan was the embodiment of that Sat. We find Humphrey saying that body was, he says even it was a mere corpse, he says. It was radiating God terrifically. And what is God? Sonda vadivam perila shuddha mona chinmayam. So it is Sat. It is Sat. And how beautiful it is. We often think that the action, the movement, the expressions, the manifestations alone are beautiful. But we see Bhagavan simply sitting, and when the mind is drawn to that, then we realize the beauty of being. I'm very fond of remembering that when there is the birth of a child in a home, there is so much of joy at the birth of the child. And the next few days, everyone wants to hold that baby, everyone wants to look at that baby. And at that stage, the baby does absolutely nothing. Maybe cry once in a way when it's hungry. Most of the time, it will be sleeping. And natural functions will be happening. The baby doesn't look at anyone, does not even make eye contact, let alone smile. The baby simply is. Yet the baby gives so much of joy by that simple being. So that Sat, that Sat is what is Apara. Nothing else is Apara. That's so Bhagavan is described as Apara Sat. Apara Sat. Because Apara Sat Chit Sukha. And that Sat is the Sukha. That Sat is the Chit. Being is not something which is Jada, says Bhagavan. Being is Chit. Sattayahi Chit. Chittayahyakam. It is vibrant. That's why Sadhu Swami also says, Shuddhamona Chinmayan. He says he is Chit. It is Sat, Chit, Sukhavari Rashe. So when one holds the Sat, then that Sukhavari is born. When one is moving away from the Sat. How does one move away from Sat? Can one ever move away from Sat? It is impossible because it is Apara and because it contains everything. So how do we say that we move away from it? We move away from it in thought. When our attention denies the Sat, when our attention denies the beauty and the fullness, the Apara element of the Sat, when we think that only manifestation is meaningful, we deny the beauty, the power of the Sat. When we think happiness is born of thought and action, we deny the fullness of the Sat. We make it incomplete by our approach to it. By our thought, we render the Sat, incomplete. We make it something limited. We think that only by our actions we can achieve that Sukha. Therefore, we deny the Sat. But if we do not deny the Sat, if we get back to it, as Bhagavan teaches us, if we get back to it, how to get back to it? By using the Chit. By using the Chit Jada Granthi, says Bhagavan. When we catch hold of the Chit in the Chit Jada Granthi, in this ego, in this thought, which is object, there is an element that it is my thought. It is mine. When we cut off that object in the thought, when we cut off the object part of the thought, then we are left with the Chit. And that Chit in its purity is the Sat. Sattayahi Chit. Chittayahi Aham. That is our own true nature. So Vishwanatha Swami says that if through turning the Chit back to its source, we abide as the Sat, then that is the Sukhavari Rashe. That is the infinite Apara bliss. That is the infinite bliss. That is the ocean of infinite bliss. And such turning within is the meditation of the Supreme One, without thinking about him. Chintavihinam hridi chintayami. It is meditation in the heart on Ramana, who is the self, by turning within to the self. That is the true meditation on Bhagavan. Then one becomes food unto him. As Bhagavan says in Uladanathadu, Udadal, you have to become food unto him. You have to become food unto the Supreme. That is really the way to meditate on the Supreme. So every time we think that we are separate from this Apara Sat, we have to remind ourselves of that truth by linking ourselves back to the Sat. Through that connection which Bhagavan has given us, the Aham Vritti, which has both the Chit aspect and the Jada aspect. So Bhagavan says, hold the Chit, turn it back to its source, and then you will experience the true bliss of the self. And Bhagavan, in his extraordinary, limitless, apara grace, which cannot have any limit, has made himself available as the Atmavastu. That grace has made itself available to all as the Atmavastu, as the Sat. Very often it strikes me that had the Supreme One been something which is to be seen with the eyes, then those without eyes would have missed the Supreme. If the Supreme was something which had to be heard, then those who do not have hearing would have missed the Supreme. If the Supreme was to be anything that was to be grasped by the senses, then those whose senses are not functioning would not have been able to savor of that Supreme. Therefore, it is the infinite grace of the Supreme that it is the Sat. That is the Apara grace, that is the infinite grace of the Supreme. That means nobody can miss it. It is available to all at all times, everywhere, because it is the very basis of one's existence. An existence which we all are aware of at all times. We all know, I am, I am, I am. That is never to be denied. In fact, we had a film, I think some movie, maybe Mr. India or something, where the hero gets a power to become invisible. So he's invisible, nobody can see him. But is he invisible to himself? Because nobody can see him, does he become invisible to himself? He does not. He is ever aware of his own existence, whether or not his physical form is visible, whether or not he is heard, whether or not any aspect of him is known to people outside. So that is the beauty of the Sat. It is ever available to us, and that is the Supreme One. That is its grace, that it is available to us as Sat, and it ever shines as Chit, revealing itself from moment to moment to moment to anyone who so much as turns back to it and longs to see it. And with that love, Bhagavan says, when you turn to it with devotional inquiry, then it reveals itself and envelops the limited identity. It envelops or swallows or dissolves in its infinite bliss. Such is the wonder of Ramana, who has made himself available to us in this glorious form of his, so that even seeing that form, even seeing that life, even seeing those eyes, we know about that Mauna, that stillness. Because no matter what he does, no matter how much he speaks, it is the predominant experience is of the silence of the Sat. Apara Sat. Apara Satchit Sukhavari Rashi. Chinta Vihinam Hridi Chintayami. We now continue with the Aksharamanamale, which will be chanted, verses from which will be chanted by Radha and Vallabh.
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल நைந்தழி கனியா நல நிலைப்பதத்தில் நாடி உட்கொள்ளலம் அருணாச்சலா சொந்திடதுந்தனை கந்தனை கொண்டிலை அந்த கனி என கருணாச்சலா நோக்கிய கருதி மெய்தாக்கிய பக்குவமாக்கி நீ ஆண்டருள் அருணாச்சலா பற்றி மல்விடம் தலை உற்றிருமுலம் அருள் பற்றிட அருள் புரி அருணாச்சலா பார்த்தருள் மாலர பார்த்தில்லை எனின் அருள் பாருண காசொல்வார் அருணாச்சலா பித்து விட்டுன்னை நேர்பித்தனாகினை அருள் பித்தம் தேடி மருந்தருணாச்சலா வீதியில் உன்னை சார் வீதியில் என்னை சேர் வீதி உந்தனக்கே அருணாச்சலா துள்ளறிவேதுரை நல்லறிவேதுரை புள்ளிடவே அருள் அருணாச்சலா பூமண மாமண பூரண மணம் கொள்ள பூரண மணம் அருள் அருணாச்சலா பெயர் நினைத்திடவே பிடித்திடு தன்னை உன் பெருமையார் அறிவார் அருணாச்சலா பேய்த்தனம் விட விடா பேயா பிடித்தென்னை பேயனாக்கினையன் அருணாச்சலா பைங்கொடியானான் பற்றின்றி வாடாமல் பற்று கொடாய் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமண மாலை வாழி நமோ ரமண.
Namo Ramana. We'll be concluding the satsang with the Ashtotra Puja at his Subramanyam's altar, and that will be chanted by Vaibhav and by Ashwini and Uma. Before that, I would like to thank all the devotees who have been supporting us through this lockdown period and who are continuing to support us. And I do seek the continued support of all the devotees to enable us to sustain the activities. As everyone is aware, although Bangalore has come to a little bit of an unlock period, really speaking, the activities, our auditorium, etc., are closed down, and we do not know how long it is going to be before we are able to really open the sustainable activities. So I look forward to the continuous support from devotees, which is Bhagavan's grace flowing to us at Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning for all our activities. I would also, Pratibha from Nashville, USA, would like to make an announcement about a lecture they have organized tomorrow of RMCL. I would ask Pratibha to make her invitation to all, following which we will have the Ashtotra Puja.
Thanks, Akka. For all of those who are physically thousands of miles away from Ramana Center, these online satsangs have been such a blessing. And by Bhagwan's grace, we have been able to arrange an Oshardaka's talk tomorrow online by Zoom meeting on self-inquiry, the Ramana way. And it's going to be at Indian time, 8:45 p.m. And so we welcome all of you to Nashville for the talk, and we will be sharing the meeting details after the satsang. Thank you. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योमि मात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्दितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौळिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूणिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजदचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वमणिमतस्थानाराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मा रामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ वृक्षान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतरिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामपूजान् समर्पयामि।
साधोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजनिं प्राप्यत।
दिव्यानुग्रह सुप्रवाहोच स्नानात्मभावं कृतः नित्यस्वकवीरनित्यतमसा लोकान् गुणाशेषकान् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमहितं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संज्ञे सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನ ಕಾಡು ನರಿಯ ಸರಜಾಡು ನರಿದು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ಕೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದನ ನೋಡಿಯೇ ನಗುವೆವಯ್ಯ ನೋಡಿ ಪರನೇ ಹಿತವನು ಹಿಡು ಕೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।